Alright, so I just got this new watch, and I wanted to do a review. Prepare for maximum autism, because I really comprehensively analyzed this and wrote quite a long post about it. And I'm going to go into detail. This could take 20 or 30 minutes, who knows, but sometimes I think longer is better. So this is the PRG300 line, and it's the -4, which has an orange band and an olive drab bezel, I guess you would call it. Came out in this month, June 2016, and retails for $250. I got it right off of the Casio website, and I don't believe in unboxing videos because I think they're just kind of stupid. But it came with this really nice box, which I thought was kind of cool. It's like some kind of dense, refined cardboard. Okay, so here's the watch. This is a Pro Trek, and I'm just gonna do sort of like the really close multi-view sort of thing here. This is kind of cool. Sorry, it's gonna take me a bit to get this just right, but yeah, here we go. You can shade the display and hold it really close, tilt it, and you can actually see every single element of the liquid crystal. Like I guess those are like etched or something. I'm not really super familiar with how they make liquid crystal displays. I've only done a little bit of research, but I thought this was kind of cool, just that you're able to see all the different segments and little icons and stuff. So yeah, alright, this is the display, the bezel, the sensor, the two sort of like function modal buttons, and then the main like direct mode buttons for the compass, barometer, and altimeter. Well, the barometer is also a thermometer. I mean, there's also a thermometer displayed as well. Here's what the back looks like. Stainless steel, laser etched, pretty cool. Yeah, so now I'm gonna go over, oh yeah, well I should probably do this. The light button is right here. It's a LED on the left side of the watch, and it works good. I prefer the like electroluminescent background lights because it's more even, but somehow they managed to do it so it actually lights up the display really evenly and works well. I might give a demo of that in the dark later on. Big, huge ProTech logo right here on the band. And I have no idea what these little codes are for. Probably some kind of manufacturing code for the band. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I think that pretty much is a pretty good overview of the design. This is what it looks like on the wrist. It's pretty big. Let's put it next to my old G-Shock. So it's a little bit bigger just because it's rounder, and a little bit thicker too, but I mean that's sort of what you would expect from a watch that has all these sensors. I mean, they had to pack a lot more in a tiny package. You can see the main display is much bigger, which is cool. Easier to read. There's also a negative display version of the Pro Trek, but I opted for the conventional display just because I was sick of the negative display. Like I think it really is harder to read. It's not intuitive, but it literally is a bit harder to read. And that's an important thing to point out here. The angle at which like the polarization stops working and the display kind of just vanishes and the numbers vanish is much more like extreme with the reverse display than the conventional, although the conventional display does fade out pretty quick as well. So that's just something to note. Like you pretty much have to be facing the watch straight on to really see it clearly. Okay, so this is going to be a little bit challenging. I'm going to try to go over my incredibly long thing of notes that I have here and point out the features. Okay, so as for the functional flaws that I found in the watch, limited views for the timekeeping mode. So this is timekeeping mode right here, and if you push the adjust button, you can cycle through different views. You see the little bar graph up there, that's the barometric pressure graph, which you'll see is identical if you go to the barometer. So in time mode you can see the barometric pressure, you can see the day of the week followed by the numerical calendar date, and then there's the conventional month and day of the year as numerics. I would have liked to see several more options for this instead of just these three, but I'll go over that in detail sort of at the end of the video. Okay, sensor inaccuracy. This is another flaw. Okay, the compass works great. The compass is awesome. Like, it truly is just totally rock solid. So, no problem with the compass. And you can see the time still down there. That's pretty cool. The barometer, surprisingly accurate. You can see the temperature down there. It says it's 54 degrees Fahrenheit. That is really inaccurate. I've calibrated it a couple times, but it just seems to refuse to remain accurate, so I don't know. It does say in the manual that 20 to 30 minutes of continuous like exposure to whatever your ambient temperature is what you need to get an accurate reading. So that kind of plays a critical factor, but it's like there aren't a lot of situations, I think, where you'll be in a place where you want to know the temperature right away and you don't, or you would actually want to wait for like 30 minutes to get a reading. That's kind of absurd in my opinion, so there's a little limited utility there. Yeah, the graph is cool. It updates very slowly though. You can change the update interval, but still it's never really like, it's not like real time or anything. Altimeter also like really inaccurate. In fact, the most inaccurate of all the sensors, I would have to say. Like when I first got the watch, it was reading -5 below sea level, and I'm actually like probably like 60 feet above sea level. I actually calibrated this yesterday using an internet reading, and it's showing 160 feet above sea level, which is not accurate. There's another graph up here that shows your elevation change, and it is cool in theory, but when I was actually driving from one location to another and I was going steadily uphill and the altitude was changing rapidly, the graph kind of just like quickly went off the screen. It just became completely dark and solid. So it's like it apparently doesn't have like a scaling option, so it only really is effective if you're slowly changing altitude. And when I was dropping in altitude on the return trip, I noticed it was also kind of erratic, the display. So it doesn't do well with rapid altitude changes, which I'm going to cut them a little bit of slack there, because like it's not really designed for that, and it says in the manual that it isn't designed for that. It's more designed for like hiking. Okay, so let's just go through the modes. There's like time, the timekeeping mode, really straightforward. Got your hours, minutes, seconds, your date, and the 3 modes there. This is a really cool feature. This is the sunset, sunrise kind of tracker thing. And you actually can put in your exact latitude and longitude to heighten the accuracy. But if you're in a major city, you don't have to worry about that. It's only if you're out in the sticks like I am. And yeah, so the sunrise is in the middle, 5:50, and the sunset is down at the bottom, so 8:46. I have it set to military time just because I prefer it. But yeah, this is really cool. I like this feature. Kind of a little bonus there. This is for recording altitude and pressure and stuff. You can like record certain things in the little memory. I'm probably never going to use this, but I'm sure some people out there would. Stopwatch, just totally basic. Let's see if I can even remember how this works. I'll just smash buttons. Okay, yeah, the altimeter button starts it and then stops it, and then the compass button resets it. Yeah, okay. So yeah, stopwatch, kind of self-explanatory. The the timer, you can set this using adjust, and yeah, same thing. So the altimeter button starts, and this is really useful to have the current time on timers down on the bottom, because sometimes you want to see what time it is, but you want to also be on the timer screen. So that's a nice utilization of that. Alarm, there's 4 alarms, and you can like cycle through those. I have this set for 11. The alarm sound is exactly the same as every other Casio watch since the 80s. It's like beep 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 beep. You know, I kind of wish they'd mix it up like Timex, which is new alarm sounds that are much more pleasing and effective, I think, but whatever, it's a classic, so can't knock it. This is world time, and right now it's showing UTC. You can actually scroll through the countries by using the compass and altimeter button, I think. Yeah, so then that's really cool. Like, you can check all the times of pretty much every major city in the world just by scrolling through there. And then we're back to the main time display. Let me see. Let's see. Yep, okay. So that's pretty much every basic functionality of the watch. Alright, let's go over all the things that I've written down here. Okay, the band. The band looks cheap. I mean, there's no easier or diplomatic way to say this. I mean, it looks like a high quality synthetic band, but in terms of a watch band for a $200 plus watch, it's just kind of cheap, and I'll cover that a little bit more in the summary, but it feels good, but not so good on your wrist. And I don't know, this stainless steel buckle thing, I don't know, I don't really like how it looks. It doesn't fit perfectly, and the little catch thing, it's kind of it's so lightweight that it flops around a lot, like when you're putting on the watch, or more specifically taking off the watch. It's hard to remove because you have to kind of like get it to fall down and a little bit uncomfortable. So I much prefer the clasp type and link because it's so much faster to take on and put on and take off. Also, you'll notice how this just lays flat and how this just crumples right up. That's important because like the wrist is not a circle, it's sort of a rounded rectangle. So you really want the band to be able to collapse. I'm hoping over time this will conform better to my wrist, but for right now it isn't. It's like staying round. It's a fairly rigid material, so it's kind of like pinching here and here on both sides, and just sort of there's like a space in the bottom and the top. So that's not optimal, and you can see like an illustration of what I'm talking about really clearly if you clasp the watch. And then you try to set it down like you would the other watch. Like it doesn't, there's no flexibility whatsoever. It just stays upright because like I said, this is a really tough material. Okay, let's see what else. Oh yeah, the positives of this band are that unlike the chain link, I mean, I've never had any trouble with this in terms of durability, but I don't think this is like unbreakable. I don't think I'd ever have to worry about this breaking. While the pins could theoretically fail and then the watch could get lost. And you don't want to lose a $200 watch. Okay, cosmetic flaws. Alright, I'm trying to scroll here with my finger on my touch screen. Okay, the gear motif around I call it a gear, but it's not really a gear. I don't know what it is, but these little indentations here, as you can see on the bottom, they changed the motif for some reason. Like this one is longer. Like I understand it couldn't be the same depth because if they'd done that, it would have broken into the light button area. But they actually like made it wider. Like why? I mean, I see they're trying to line it up with the light button, but they should have just left it consistent. And then of course over here where there's the sensor, they put this cutout, so the motif is also broken there. So like I wouldn't have made a cutout here. I would have maintained the motif all the way around, wouldn't have elongated this. And then at the top there's like this little part that sticks out. Like why? No idea. Like down here it makes sense because this is for the light button, but at the top it doesn't really make sense unless they were trying to create some kind of symmetry with the bottom, in which case why didn't they just create an identical light button type projection here that wouldn't have been a button but would have looked the same. That would have at least created a pleasing symmetry. So yeah, that was a cosmetic flaw. Let's see what else. Okay, the innermost indicator ring, which is like the one closest to the display, this is kind of hard to see, but actually no, it isn't. Really reflective. Like it's a highly reflective black material. I don't know why it's so reflective, but really unpleasant, and it's kind of unattractive because of that as well. Like not only is it distracting, but it looks kind of gross, like latex or something. I don't know. I would have preferred a flat material, or better yet, completely get rid of that inner ring and then just put the indicators that you need out here on the outer bezel. I think that would have been a better location for them overall. Okay, there's text and icons placed over the solar panel, and as anybody who's ever done any electrical engineering will know, that actually diminishes the efficiency of your solar panel. So like the ProTech logo up there is silvery white, and that reflects the maximum amount of light, so it's actually reducing the efficiency of that panel. These icons totally unnecessary because it already says compass barrel all like on the bezel. So like, why do you need additional icons? Like, they're attractive, I'll give it that, but totally unnecessary and reducing the efficiency of the solar panel. Battery text also down there in the dark gray. Once again, not really necessary, and blocking the solar panel. This is the most curious cosmetic defect, I think, of the whole watch, and that's there's like this lip of black like sealant material, I don't know, and this is on all the watches, so it's not like a defect or anything, but it actually like cuts across this bottom of the solar panel segment there, which is like really interesting because it's aesthetically it's unappealing and it's blocking the solar panel. So that just seems to me like a design flaw that could have been fixed at some point, and I'm sure that has something to do with the fact that there's a switch here for the light. Okay, let's see what now. Okay, in general, it seems like the overall aesthetic is just a little more busy than necessary. Like, they used 3 different colors for the text and icons. Like, the icons are like the sky blue. The text, the ProTech text is silvery white. The text for the battery is gray. This is kind of like a grayish olive drab. Bright orange indicator. This was actually one of my favorite parts of the color scheme, though. Actually, I think that works really well to highlight the fact that the buttons are a brighter orange than the band, and the buttons over here are darker green than olive drab, along with the sensor. But in general, I think like a little bit of consistency might have actually improved the aesthetics. So different types of buttons. Like, honestly, this is one of the best innovations Casio's ever made, are these little grippy buttons. Like, they're so easy to push, they're so easy to find, and yet they made these buttons over here like rounded off and harder to push. So like, I would have, even if they were going to leave them the same color, I wish they had given them that finish, that grip finish, because it really just is a huge improvement on overall button design, I think. Okay, 2 different finishes for the metal component. So like, the screws are like stained a dark color, then there's the brushed stainless steel of the back and the buckle. So like, I would have liked some uniformity there as well. Like, I think they should have just gone with the same brushed stainless steel look for these screws and not made them dark. Like, I know why they did that. They didn't want them to stand out against the olive drab, but I think it actually would have looked better if they were standing out. Okay, a little more geometry than is necessary in this watch. Like, there's an extra sort of chamfering here on the side parts. This projection I noted earlier, the strange like containerization they built for the sensor protector, I guess you call that. This geometry down here where they put these little lips underneath the buttons, that's a great thing. That's good, because you don't have to worry about accidentally pushing them as it's rocking around in your wrist. So I think that's definitely a positive part of the geometry. These projections right here, they're actually, it took me a while to figure this out, which is kind of embarrassing, but they're actually connected to the bottom part here that holds it's kind of a reinforcement that holds the back sort of flush. I mean, the back is screwed down, but these kind of add a little more support. I don't get these at all. Like, I don't think they're necessary. They're kind of like disruptive because they look like buttons somehow. A different color. They're the same color as the buttons and the sensor. just sort of a darker olive drab, and they kind of like break up the band, so I think that would actually make the band weaker unless there's a pin that goes all the way through the whole thing. So I think those should be removed. Those are like on all of the ProTrek watches in this line, and I think it's just unnecessary and unattractive. I'm not sure exactly how I would have finished this area off, but I would have streamlined it and tried to get rid of those. I mean, I guess they're sort of like little bumpers. They might like provide a little bit of shock protection if you're like smacking things on the top or bottom. I don't know. I just don't like the way they look. Okay. I'd say one could argue that these are the very characteristics that constitute the unique charm of Casio watches, which I describe as the striking cognitive dissonance of an immaculate core of consummate Japanese engineering wrapped in an often ugly shell of clashing colors and inexplicable structural carbuncles. Alright. Just trying to scroll down here, and my laptop is not really behaving. Seems to have gone into some kind of sleep mode. Come on. Okay. As for the display itself, there are effectively 3 data lines. There's the top graph, alphanumeric, then there's the main time display, which can also display a few alphabet characters, and then there's the bottom numeric, which I think can also be used for a few alphabet characters. They're delineated by these horizontal bars, and my least favorite visual aspect of the entire watch is this top bar, which is being overlapped by the graph data box. You can see it's like, at least they were trying to make it look like it's overlapping, I think. It cuts a chunk out of the middle of the bar, which just looks sloppy and poorly planned to me. Like, it would have been much better if this bar was the same as the bottom bar with the uniform width and no like chop job. As is common with the Casio 7 segmented displays, the outer digits have been compressed, which you can see if you tilt the watch and shade the glare. The outer micro digit on this side and then the farthest digit on the left are both compacted. They're compressed horizontally to fit into the display area. I'd like to note here that the central digits actually have 8 segments. While general legibility is not greatly improved, they do look a little better when being used for alphabetic characters. So that's kind of an interesting innovation. I just don't know why they don't go all the way and replace the segmented displays with the matrix style, because it's a lot more legible. It gives you a lot more freedom. Like, yeah, it's a little bit more overhead when it comes to like programming the processor that ultimately turns those on and off, because you have more calculations to do, but realistically I don't think it's that big of a deal. My second and least favorite design decision involves the top data display, which doubles as an alphanumeric ticker and a primitive point graph. The matrix is 21 by 8 pixels for a grand total of 168 pixels, individual liquid crystal segments. and is slightly skewed to the right, giving it a vague italicized appearance. In fact, excepting only the Casio logo at the top of the display, all other visual icons, numbers, and letters are leaning perhaps half a degree to the right. Alphanumeric characters themselves do not utilize the entire matrix. You'll see this. I'm just about to show you why. When you go to the barometer, like the bottom line, let's see what else. When you go into time mode and you're using the day of the week display, you can see the bottom line is not being utilized. So the bottom row of 21 pixels are blank unless the graph is active. The most annoying part of the data block is that it is designated with very tiny black dots placed at the corner of each pixel. You can see those really clearly in this view. I understand the reasoning behind this, but I think I would have preferred the less intrusive approach that the G-Shock uses, which is just enclosing the pixel field in a little, like, incredibly clear rounded box like this watch has. I just think that looks so much more appealing, and really it would make the graph stronger because the little dots I think kind of diminish the clarity of the graph. Okay, just bear with me while I flip my laptop around so I can actually get the text to scroll here. Okay, things that I love about this watch. Let's see if I can zoom in and make this easy on myself. I'm sorry I've been wobbling around so much, but it's hard to hold and talk and read all at the same time. Despite everything I've said so far, I really love the way it looks, especially the color scheme. The dominant tones of olive drab paired with the dull orange evokes a powerfully nostalgic and authentic feeling wilderness survival aesthetic, reminiscent of pragmatic flare guns and military grade survival gear. It somehow manages to capture that rare quality of looking both inconspicuous and easy to locate, both tough and yet elegant, as though being developed over a long period of time, taking into consideration genuine experience and necessity. The large central digits are easy to read, day or night, thanks to the light. Switching between modes and their various functions is effortless and for the most part intuitive. The solar power gives you a sense of security that few electronic devices have today. My old tough solar G-Shock lasted 8 years before the solar battery started to fail. It still works but needs to be charged every night. I look forward to wearing this watch for the next 8 years without having to worry about overusing the power-hungry sensor functions. In conclusion, a good watch at a fair price of approximately $250, given the amount of functionality that's crammed into such a small, attractive, and durable package. Atomic time would have been nice, but certainly not a deal breaker. All my suggestions for improvement are fairly frivolous. I would have liked several more data display variations for the main timekeeping mode. Specifically, the bottom display could be used to show the date, while the top display could show the day of the week. I'm moving around a lot, so it's kind of hard to explain what I'm talking about here. My old G-Shock was able to show the trifecta of time with seconds, date, and day of the week all at the same time. You can see that pretty clearly here. So you got the day of the week here, you got the date 6/26, and you got the time with seconds all in one display. And this watch, you've got less information available at a glance. It seems like a more expensive watch should be able to do this too. I would also like the ability to cycle through all sensor data on the top display while in timekeeping mode. There are only 3 variations: numerical, month, and day. Day of the week with day of the month, and the barometric graph. Sorry, that was out of order. It would be nice if you could also cycle through temperature and altitude. There's an altitude graph in altitude mode. So it seems like a natural fit. Temperature could just as easily be shuffled to the bottom line. What I'm talking about in the main display timekeeping mode. I don't see why you couldn't have the temperature down here, and you could access that by clicking on the adjust button and going through these modes. So in other words, not only would the top field be changing, but the bottom field would be changing too. So you'd have various combinations of these two fields. This way you could have barometric or altitude graphs on the top display. So just like there's a right now the barometric graph, I don't see why you couldn't also be able to switch to the altitude graph up here and have temperature down here at the same time. So it's just the ability to display different groups of data from the sensors on the main display along with the time. I think it's like a no-brainer that they really could have leveraged. Let's see. Yeah, inversely, if you were really ambitious, I would suggest a significant redesign of the LCD display itself. Replace the central 7-segment, or in this case 8-segment display, with a graph matrix. So you would take this graph matrix and move it down here, and then you would change this graph up here to another 7-segment display like we have down here, which actually has 4 digit places. The central LCD, which would then become a graph, could be used just as easily for displaying alphanumerics and the time, just like this, only it would be pixels instead of display. And then when you switch to graph space, it would just basically it would be an enlarged, easier to read graph with improved legibility and better data visualization when you're scrolling through the sensor modes. I personally would also like other band options. When I pay $200 plus for a watch, I'd like to get it with a clasping band like my old G-Shock, just because it's so much quicker and easier to put it on, take it off, and I don't know, it feels more personalized with the clasping band and just more like, I don't know, I don't want to get into like metaphysics here, but yeah, it feels more luxurious. It's kind of just ridiculous, but it's true. Like, it just feels more expensive, which is stupid. I don't really care if it feels expensive. I care that it performs and functions well, but I guess I do kind of care a little about that. So yeah, I think there really isn't anything else I had to say about this watch, and holy crap, I've gone on for almost 40 minutes. But my last watch review, I've only done 2, and my last one was of this watch that I bought 8 years ago, and that was a long video as well, and it seemed to be really popular. It's actually one of my most viewed videos. So I figured, why not go the extra mile with this one and really just go all out, and plus it really appeals to my autistic nature to go overboard. And there's few things in this world that cis white males like to do more than fetishize their watches. So anyhow, thanks for watching, and I hope you find I hope you found this video informative, and yeah, thanks for watching.